Sweet. We are live and alive. Jonathan Farber, thanks so much for joining us today on the Sphere Rocket Podcast.
Appreciate you having me. Excited to catch up with you. Thanks for accommodating. So looking forward to it.
So, dude, I want to hear everything. I want to hear the nitty gritty. Give me the story. Tell me what you do, how you got into it, how do you make your money? Tell me everything.
Yeah, the short version, and cut me off anytime. I actually used to do a podcast too. We did a daily show for like 300 episodes. It's fun, but it turns into a grind at that pace and that many. But anyway, the long and short is I grew up on Long Island. I wasn't really like a big academic person. I wasn't too into school or things like that. I played sports, but I was always like working on stuff. I wasn't super entrepreneurial either, but just always had jobs, like to make money. Went through college, played golf in college at a school here. And then when I was coming out, I was like, am I going to try to play pro golf or am I going to try to do something in business? The thing was I had no business experience. It was like year 4, no internships, whatever. So I just started cold calling people and DMing people on LinkedIn. And I started with people that went to the same college as me and worked at, companies that seemed to make a lot of money. And that's how I met my first mentor, this guy named Tom Mendoza. Didn't know it at the time, but he's an amazing person. He became my mentor, worth a couple $100 million. I didn't know at the time. He's the Tom Mendoza School of Business at Notre Dame. And he was like drawn to it. He's like, bro, you cold called me, like took me under his wing, gave me a job at the company he was a vice chairman of and put me in their sales academy. I started doing sales there. I moved to North Carolina. Granted, I was totally underqualified for all of this, but it was just like kind of a testament of, okay, try to do some of the activity that maybe I'll be doing in the next job. And that kind of proves that maybe you could do the thing. So started doing that. And when I was down there, I had a friend who was like, kind of like me, tinkerer, always working on stuff. And he's like, there's this thing, Bigger Pockets. We could start making money on real estate, passive income, yada, yada. And so anyway, I started doing creative real estate strategies when I was living in North Carolina at the NetApp Sales Academy. And I was just buying like a property or two a year. It was cheap back then. I could do creative financing. And I was just doing that on the side as I was kind of working my way up in the sales program there. And like, I was a hardo. I was like way, not that I'm like not a hard worker now, but I was like first one in, last one out, suit every day. I was leading the trainings, this and that. And it worked out in the sense like I became the youngest enterprise account manager at the company. I was like, I went to club the first couple of years that I was eligible and it was great. And then I was taking that money, I was just buying real estate. And time came, moved back to New York, being enterprise AE, sounds great. Hated it. Hated living in New York. I hated the job. I hated how I had no control of my schedule. Money was great. I was 25 and I was making good money, but I didn't like it. And then COVID hit. And then at that time I was like, I think I have an opportunity here. Maybe I could grow the real estate business. So I kind of went on the road. I just broke my lease, packed up my stuff in New York. And then I moved to Kentucky for like 4 months. And then I moved to Ohio for a month. And I was just trying to make relationships and buy real estate, do multifamily or try to, I had a wholesaling company. We did flips. And then I, did some syndicating or JV deals on some multifamily stuff. And it was cool. I was kind of like finding my footing with all this. And then, life kind of got back to a little more normal. And then, I had rentals, I had Airbnbs, I started doing that more. And that like was enough that, kind of unhinged me from corporate and the work world, of like having a boss and all that, which was cool. I wasn't like bawling or anything, but, it was like, okay, I can cover everything I need to live and still have some money left over and, whatever. And I had a team and, some people overseas helping me. And then, just to kind of bring it home, I then was like, I didn't know what my next thing was going to be. I started making content. That kind of like took off. And I actually hated making content, but like COVID, everything was like fake and free and easy. I think I had like 300,000 followers across everything in like 6 months. And I was like, whoa. So then kind of got into some like real estate coaching. It seemed like that was the natural thing to do. Hated that, had no interest in doing that, but it was super profitable. We did probably, like 7 figures in the first 9 months. It was cool and fun, but I was just like, I don't like this. I'm not a coach and I don't like having to be sort of like on call for people. So shut it down. Was kind of not sure what my next project would be. I still had the real estate and then kind of just backed into this next business, which has been really cool and fun and, something more scalable, which is the bookkeeping company. I was doing like staffing and VA placements for a while, but it was just not really getting the traction I wanted. So kind of got into that. And then, that's the business that I do today. I still have the real estate. And then I mentioned to you before recording, the way I kind of set my life up, I kind of work 6 months and then I try to just like sabbatical or like, Tim Ferriss type of mini retirement. I know it's super cliche, but I just like that kind of philosophy. And then my
Yeah.
other passion is I just love to play golf. I play competitive golf. I played in college. So, then my job in the summer is like 30 to 40 golf tournaments and just doing that. And yeah, it's been good. Medellin in the summer, work mode, grind mode, build stuff. And then the summer, Long Island. And yeah, just try to have a business that can kind of run and, cash flow without me needing to be involved, but then, play golf on the side and kind of use that as my release. So yeah, that's me.
So with all the projects you had going on, you had coaching, you had wholesaling, you had REI, right? I'm sure were you doing a flipping? I know you're doing
Yeah,
some wholesaling.
that was
Right?
the worst.
Flipping.
I hated that. I mean,
Flipping,
some of these businesses, again,
wholesaling.
it's like trial and error. That one I did not enjoy at all. We had title issues and it's permitting. It was just, yeah, anyway, not for me. But yes, there was a lot of
What's
different things to try to figure out the
what's
thing that
your
I wanted to do.
primary focus now?
Just the bookkeeping. And then usually I'll take the cash flow from that and buy more assets, buy more
And you were
STRs
doing
or multi-use.
VA placement too?
That was what I was doing before the bookkeeping. Basically, we were doing that. And yeah, I just, maybe it was like wrong ICP and I didn't have, the right systems in place, but it was just a really tough sell. And the people I was talking to and selling to, they didn't have the money for it and it was just really uphill. And yeah, I mean, a couple of them just had kind of hinted to me and mentioned to me like, hey, this bookkeeping thing is really a struggle. And it was a struggle of mine too. I overpaid my taxes by $24,000 in 2021. That's a whole other story, but that was really sucky. And it kind of, made me think, man, maybe other people have this same problem too. And then, that kind of just kind of blew up. In a few months, we had like 65 clients and, and it's kind of been off to the races since in, 2 years.
And so the bookkeeping is that's your primary focus now, but it all came from the virtual assistant staffing firm. It's funny what I tell Justin all the time, our founder, is I'm like, dude, there's so many other companies that we can start in a VA business, whether it's Sphere Rocket, social media, right? It's like, oh, you don't want to hire a virtual assistant to manage your social media. You just want the social media management done. So we staff the VA and then pay a premium, right?
True.
Bookkeeping, right? Inside sales, right? Whatever it is. So many people hate the management side of it. I think that's funny that you came to that same conclusion after doing the VA staffing. We don't do any of that. We kept the main thing, and just continued to sell VAs. But I think it's funny that you came to that same realization.
Yeah, totally. It's like trial and error, right? And figuring out what fits and what people say yes to, like I just was getting more resistance and friction trying to sell that. And then when I was trying to sell this other thing, it seemed to come easier and sort of connect more with people. And it's definitely like, avatar and ICP specific. And it depends on, who followed my content and what type of messaging I was putting out there and the pricing and all that, which, takes a lot of work to kind of figure out. But yeah, I mean, I say to people all the time too, that are like, just, not sure what to do. It's like, it does take testing and, it still might not even be what you land on long-term. This is the thing I think is what I'm going to do for a long time. It seems like a very scalable, sellable business. I don't have to be involved and, it can grow, but it took a lot of different tinkering and trials to get here. Right.
Yeah. Is that the goal with the business? Are you eventually trying to sell it someday? What's the goal of the business? Is it just trying to create that lifestyle that you're looking for or what?
So like with everything I do, whether I think I'm going to sell it or not, I want it to be built to sell. Like that old cliche, that book, in the sense of like, I'm not involved in any of the operations. I don't know how to do bookkeeping. I don't know how to do accounting. I'm neither. I literally have zero experience with that. I'm barely competent to just, get mine done. Of course, now I've learned and I can manage, but like I'm not operational. So for me, yes. Is there a number I think we can get to and maybe sell for 10 or $15 million in a couple of years? Definitely. And there's a very clear path to get there. But what that means is the business needs to be healthy and optimized and efficient along the way to get there. And if I'm a bottleneck, if there's key man risk, it's not going to be worth anything lifestyle wise now or when it's time to potentially sell. So for me, it would be cool. Yes. And who knows with AI, I think AI is going to be super disruptive in all of these types of admin roles, and even where I think about with where we're going to go and what we're going to pivot to and the services we're going to offer. So timing, I think, is important too. If I think we can, really capitalize on a good evaluation and just, see something, I would sell sooner. But, I think for me, I'm in it for the cash flow, and if we can sell, great, but it just needs to be a business that I actually like. And I think a lot of people don't like the businesses they get into, because if they look at their hourly, they're making less than they were when they had their job, and they're on call 24/7. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think you said something so valuable though. I'm just curious. Have you exited a business before with what you just mentioned? Have you sold a business already?
No, I haven't. Just
You haven't? Okay.
properties, but no, I haven't ever sold an actual business.
You said something that I think is extremely valuable for the audience. You mentioned you know nothing about bookkeeping, yet you run a bookkeeping business and you're not involved in the operations. Usually, most business owners that I see struggle. Obviously, I'm selling virtual assistants, right? They are struggling because they struggle to remove themselves from the operation, right? They're like, "Oh, my new hire needs to be completely perfect." That's not going to happen, right? How did you remove yourself from the operations, especially in a business that you know nothing about?
I got really lucky at the beginning, actually, because I was going to be doing a different model. I was going to be doing more of like the maybe classic agency, like, arbitrage of people, where I was going to do, okay, we put a bookkeeper full time in your business. We pay the bookkeeper 900, we charge you 2 grand, and there's a delta there, that's our profit. And even that, I was having trouble getting traction with. Again, maybe these people, they weren't ready for it, or they just thought they could get it cheaper, but it was a struggle. And again, just from doing the staffing stuff myself, we always had good talent in the mix. I always had a good knack for finding good people. So the staffing part wasn't the challenge, but it was just like the sales and product market fit. So what happened was, I basically was at like the 1 yard line with like the first sale that I was going to make of this full-time person. And the guy just strung me along for months. And I was so bummed out at the end. He's like, yeah, we're not doing it. And I was just like, gosh, this person seems so qualified. Like, she has bookkeeping experience. She has accounting experience. She's worked in big companies. She's trained people. I was like, I think I could just hire her full time and then parse out her time and see if that model would work. And she sort of just, I think she was enabled, she was empowered, but she just took the ball and ran with it. And she helped build out the teams under her and build out our SOPs and our playbooks, and sort of just build our optimizations and, some of our AI things even now. Like, I've learned enough to be a problem solver in the business, but still she's been like my tutor, and she's built the curriculum for the rest of the team, so that when new hires come in, they just watch her playbook, they watch her onboarding that she helped build. So at the time, I was so bummed when we didn't get that job, but it ended up being a blessing in disguise that this woman came in, and she's just been like a power player for the team, and built it out. So yeah, that's how I didn't ever do the actual thing that we do. Like, a lot of, I think, agencies, they're starting as like the social media manager, and then they hire someone. I never did the actual thing, which like has had plenty of challenges. Don't let me, make it seem like it hasn't. There's plenty when you don't know how to actually do the thing. It's like, to fix a problem, you need to get a lot of context first to be able to do it. And then, whatever, backtrack. But yeah, that's how. And, trial and error and going. One thing I picked up, I read a book, and I was watching a bunch of like random stuff on Elon Musk like a while back, and it was just like, he does all these different things, and yes, he's a genius and he can like be an engineer, but like his seems like main skill is he is just constantly in problem solving mode and going to the core of whatever the problem is, getting context on it, and then trying to fix it. And yes, if
100%.
you have like awareness of the thing, it can be easier to fix it. But like, I think ultimately that skill alone can overcome, you being like unbelievably like capable or like efficient, or knowing every detail about things, because you can just jump in and problem solve.
Yeah, 100%. What role in the business do you like to play since you're not playing the role of operator?
Right now it's mainly AI. I probably spend 50% of my time studying AI, talking to consultants, coaches, networking with people, seeing where we can, like what we've even seen now is like the work that one person does is what 5 people did 6 months ago. So I'm
Yeah.
just trying to constantly find that equity and seeing where we can get our people more and more efficient. That's a big part of it. I'm still a little bit the face of the brand, which, I like and don't like, in the sense of, there's a lot of, I think, benefit of having a personal brand, but it's still sometimes my face and my voice. So I'll still like, sit down and do like a monthly content batch or like a content planning, something like that. Um, yeah. And then I think just like morale, I think I can be there to like pump people up, talk to people, like gather information and sort of help with like, culture. But yeah, I think all those things, they would happen with or without me. I think maybe I can just make them happen faster, and I can pour gas on some things. But yeah, I think that kind of sums it up. But it ebbs and flows. But I would say those are like the main things. And even like with Claude now and like a bunch of other little tools, like having scorecards and access to like the key decision making data has made the job so much easier from like an owner standpoint, to just see like, okay, where are there soft spots in the business, and how do we make a tweak? How do we get ahead of something? Where this looks like it's probably going to lead to a churn or a CS ticket, but we can get ahead of it this way. So that's kind of something that it's part of the AI conversation, but made my life easier in the sense of I don't have to be in meetings to get the same information I did maybe last year, and it can be just more kind of snapshot views. So I don't know. Yeah, that's where I get excited and spend my time now, and podcasts, doing stuff like this.
A lot of people come to me and they have this question, and it sounds like you nailed it. It sounds like you'll support sort of my thesis on it as well. They'll say, Bruce, why would you be in the business of selling virtual assistants, right? When AI could be replacing so many of those jobs. But obviously you're using both. So tell me how you're using AI and international hires.
I was just thinking about this of like, where are we going to go next? Because I do think so. Okay, like AOL just like died a year ago. Okay, no one's used AOL in a long time. My mom still has a landline. People like, I think it's 50 million or 70 million people still like have cable in their house. Like, it takes time for things to change. And even if I had a bookkeeping business, that a lot of it could be replaced with like Claude or AI tools, I think just the demographic and like the type of business it is, it'll get to it later. But still, I'm constantly thinking. So for us, what that means is I think accounting and filing is a little bit safer, because I do think there is going to be a world where a lot of, for very savvy people, the bookkeeping can just be done with, uploading to AI platforms. You can get reports back. So I really do think a lot of the admin work will be replaced. So things that, are more upstream will have a higher likelihood of not. But even with that, I still think, there's always going to be, not always, but for a very long time, people that don't want to do the thing. They are not interested in figuring it out themselves, and they're just going to want to have an agency or a service provided for them and get it done. But I think, for now, it's really just about optimizing the people we have. Like, I've seen, a lot of companies are laying off, but I, did an all hands with our team like 2 weeks ago, and it's like, hey, like, that's not the direction we're going, but everyone here needs to be basically an owner in the business and have, that entrepreneur mentality to get shit done, and to really just think for yourself and think, how can I run this business myself? Now, on the other hand, I think with the wrong incentive structure, that's really hard. Like, telling my team to do that when they have no incentive in becoming more efficient or more optimized, like, it's just noise. So again, back to the data, we just finished rolling out a whole new scorecard and scoring system and bonus structure, where everyone on the team is now basically incentivized to be more efficient, find more ways to get things done faster, so that they are incentivized to raise their hand instead of, back away. Because if you have no incentive, it's like, what's the point? So I think that's like, where it goes. But I do think a lot of people that are like, the tip of the spear, they are going to probably just use AI tools to get admin tasks done. I think the bulk of people won't, at least for a long time. But still, like, for us, I want us to innovate as much as we can, and I want our people to just get more efficient. But I think, I don't know why it kind of just came to me there. I think the comp is a big part of that, of having them be incentivized to be owners in the business and to think things through, and to, be rewarded for doing more. Whereas a pat on the back might just not do it for them,
How are you doing it? So are you giving them profit share? Are you giving them equity? How are you doing that?
For the bookkeepers now, what we're doing is basically they have a baseline transaction number that they should be categorizing or bookkeeping on a monthly basis. And then per transaction above that, there's just tiers that they'll tap into to be paid out monthly. And then we don't pay out bonuses monthly. We pay them out at the end of the year. We do it for retention because, we want people to stay as long as possible. So that's the first part. But again, like that wouldn't have been possible without a Claude MCP connector into our project management tool and our practice management tool, which now tells us every day what clients get worked on, how many transactions get done, how many hours do they work. And it just spits out a formula that I could just see red, yellow, green of which box are they in. And then it just calculates it and then it'll just save at the end. And I'll just know at the end of the year how much to pay them. But at least that way, like I think the behavior is starting to change. Like people have raised their hand more when new clients come in. I think they will hit limits and then they'll be like, I don't want to do this. But, they're more interested in taking on more work and getting more efficient. Whereas before they really weren't, because it's like, why? And I want them to feel like this is going to be uncapped. So basically that's really it. Just the workload can be measured more easily by plugging everything through Claude and MCPs. And then now we can have scorecards that run through that. And then, we calculate a monthly payout yearly.
Yeah, got it. I think it's interesting. I think the number is 80% or 90% of the total population isn't even plugged into AI. So we live in this world of entrepreneurship where all of us are talking about it, right? But when you look at the general public, most people aren't even using ChatGPT yet. Then the people who are using ChatGPT are using it for, hey, what's my favorite recipe, right? Or talk to me like a therapist, and they aren't integrating it into their business at all. And you're creating scorecards and productivity trackers and everything else. How did you go from evolving from step one of downloading your first AI to installing it to be more productive?
Like I'll just caveat one thing there. That said, I am still looking to find other businesses and other things that are like more AI proof. Like I was just talking to a friend. We're going to do a call later this week of like maybe buying stake in his landscaping company, or a friend that does like handyman stuff. Like I do think those are seriously interesting and more like AI proof. Because my view on the AI stuff is like, I think it will be slow to adopt, but I think once people do get a taste, it is just like crack. And then, I mean, I'm sure you feel it, same with me. Like my workflow is so dependent on it now that if I didn't have it, I'd really be like, this is going to suck today. Yeah. So I do look at it like it'll take time, but then it'll happen really quick. And I want to be prepared for that. That's the other reason why I keep buying more real estate too, because I do think, again, this could be different in 20 years. I think there is like a counter swing to this, that people still want more human experience. They want to be together, unplugging. So I think Airbnbs and like retreat type things, those, if they're done right and have a competitive advantage, I think will do well. For me, man, I'm a big believer in paying people for one-on-one consultants to learn things. I hate coaching programs. I hate courses. I think, I don't want to say they're scams, but I think almost every time the coach or the mastermind person, they're making their money doing that, talking about stuff that they did a long time ago, and they're not doing X thing anymore. Now, whether that's a scam or not, you be the judge, but I don't think it should cost $15,000 to learn that thing. So what I like to do is I like to find people in those communities or just other smart people and just pay them for their time. $100, $200, $300, whatever it is. It's not 15 grand, and I can get the information one-on-one, and I can get it like tutoring and over the shoulder. And that just works best for me. I just learn better that way. So if I see someone that I think is cool and interesting in doing the thing, or they do a demo, I'll ping them and I'll be like, hey, can I buy an hour of your time? And sometimes they'll be like, hey, I do a coaching program. I'm like, nah, I'm not into it, but let me know if you have an hourly rate. I'll pay up to whatever, 400, 500, 700. Like, again, if I think that thing could be an unlock for us, I'm down. And that's how I do all my education. I mean, I'll read and watch podcasts and listen and whatever, but if I can't get to someone, and I think they have a key, like that is how we learned all of our internal like build outs for like scheduled tasks and artifacts, and even just like our Claude Cowork sort of build out, and even like our practice management tool. I just needed tutoring. And then that tutoring, the other cool thing is you have a team the person usually that you're paying, they're not going to charge you more if you bring your whole team in, to learn that thing also. So that's what I do. And people are so much more open to it than, I ever expected. And, everyone has a number for their time. It might be an outrageous number, but you could book, Patrick Bet David. I think he's like 15,000 for like 30 minutes or like 10 minutes on one of those like sites. So like you can get people. It's just, what's the value of it? So that's how I like to learn, like one-on-one demos, coaching, tutoring, lessons. And I don't like coaching programs and I don't like courses because it's like, who the hell knows if it's really going to fix my problem? And it's very like high stakes up front that usually I'm disappointed.
It's almost so much of the cost. I talk about this all the time in large scale coaching program goes into the cost per client acquisition, right? It's like, oh, I got to run ads, then I got to run sales team, then I got to run inside sales team to pursue the shrinkage of the ads. You know what I mean? So much of the cost goes into the acquisition costs, right? Where if you just go to the one-on-one, it's like, hey, can I pay you for the one-on-one? It's almost less expensive.
Totally. And I mean, again, this might not be the most ethical thing, but I also don't think it's ethical to charge a newbie 15 grand to learn something that they could now learn. Like sometimes I'll just go to someone that's in the coaching program, like, hey, can I pay you for your time? And they're just going to give me the stuff they just learned. And they're happy to do it because they need to chip back away at what they just sunk a huge amount of money into. So they're happy to do it. And they're going to give you like the best parts of it anyway. So like I've probably done that like 10 times where again, I'll just like see a screenshot from like a school community or a Zoom and I'll just ping that person and be like, hey, and it's not, they're never going to tell the coach.
That's great. Yeah.
Dude, they're happy. It's a win-win. I mean, I think it's great. So that's
can I counter you though and just give you the opposite perspective too, right?
Totally.
Dude, what I always say is that the most valuable asset when you join a coaching community is not the information that you pull from the community itself. It is the community itself. So a big client acquisition model that we have at Sphere Rocket is we will go and join. We were part of Cole Gordon's boardroom for 2 years where we paid him, I think it was $70,000 a year. But everyone who's in Cole Gordon's boardroom is now a client at Sphere Rocket. What I mean? Where awesome. Like they're all like, yeah, we need your service. Another really good one that I like mentioning is Amber Spears Forums. Do you know her?
No, I don't think so.
Amazing room, and dude, you would do amazing in there. It's just a great audience and just great people. It's a 7-figure qualifier to be in there. I think hers was $24,000 for the year, but we paid her 70 grand when we started the relationship. She had Dan Martell. You know Dan Martell?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
She had Dan Martell open for me, and then I came and spoke after Dan Martell to sell virtual assistants. It was like, why is Dan Martell opening for me? You know what I mean?
That's sick. Yeah, he's a G. That's awesome.
But the customer,
Yeah, that's awesome. So that's really
the
legit.
biggest asset of the coaching programs was the community itself, But to extract the info, I love the strategy.
No, but I think what you said is really important. Like I've joined some masterminds or gone to conferences like with that specific objective, and the ROI is there. But I think what you're doing and talking about is different than, some people thinking like, wow, I won't be able to do X, Y, Z if I don't join this program. And it's like, it's maybe it is, maybe it's not. Cause there's also that thing, right? Like sometimes people, they can't take action unless they invest a lot of money. And you know what, maybe this is the kick in the ass. I just dropped a lot of money into something and like, I'm going to see it through, that's real too. And that's, I think, one of the best like arguments for, but yeah, I think the way you just mentioned is really smart too. And if you can use it strategically, you can get a ton out of it. That's awesome.
100%, man. With your business, what's the biggest breakthrough that you've had in your business in the last 12 months? How long have you been running this business, by the way?
2 years.
2 years.
What's that?
It's got to be on the AI side.
I'm trying to think. I think it's, you know what? The AI is like kind of the layup. I'll say this has actually been maybe equally as important, if not more, is like niching down. And like I already was niched down when I started, but as I got more customers in, again, maybe AI was like the unlock with this because it shows efficiency across the company and the scorecards and the hours and what that person pays us and what's the dollar per hour as far as like revenue to the company. we've just started to do like a complete, washout of our worst clients, and the
Yeah.
clients that for us just happen to be co-hosting clients. In real estate, those are like managers of STRs. They typically, for us, they have the least money, they have the most complex books, they have the like tightest time constraint on when they need their reports. So that combination for us, not great, not fun. So
Sure.
for us, it's been like isolating who is our ideal avatar, the people that can benefit the most from us, that are the least complex, they have the most income, that are the most willing to spend, and are just typically cooler people. So we've sort of, price changed on a certain area of the business and price increased and even fired some clients. But I think for us, that's been like a huge unlock. And then that also, I think, dictates then the marketing strategy. Like for us, the way that we get clients is affiliate marketing. That is the only way. I would say 80% of our clients come from that. And like we could do a whole other podcast just on that and why that is, and why it's worked, I think, well for us. But ultimately, it's like once we know which clients are the best and the worst, then that tees me up to then see which people do I want to make relationships with, so that we can then, have affiliate partnerships and programs with that make sense, that they're going to drive the right type of clients to us. So I think that was probably the biggest thing, but I wouldn't have known that unless I kind of started a little wider. Still niche, still just real estate bookkeeping. That's all we've kind of done so far. But again, now we are kind of expanding a little bit more into services and a little bit of e-com, and just we can test of which are easier and harder and which makes more sense for us. So yes, AI is amazing. AI has enabled a lot of things, but I think like doing honest reviews of our business and seeing which types of clients are the best and worst, like what's our 80-20 top and what's our 80-20 bottom. And if we do that on a regular basis, we'll be like happier people, I think.
So I was telling you at the beginning of this call, my background's in building and scaling sales orgs, right? A lot of times people will come to me and they'll say, Moose, how did you build up such a big affiliate army at Sphere Rocket? It's our number one source of traffic as well, right? And when people think affiliate marketing, they think, I'm going to become an affiliate for other companies. That's not what I'm referring to. I'm talking about building an affiliate army for your business, right? I think it's interesting that you just mentioned that affiliate marketing is the number one source of leads for your business. How are you building up an affiliate army for your business?
I've tried to make it as tactical as possible, but there's a part of it that just sort of happens. For us, the podcast has been a big way, making relationships and then talking about ways that we can collab or help each other at the end. Like for us, a lot of people didn't have bookkeeper recommendations that they liked, or they didn't have like a person that could do trainings on that inside their community. And I think people see like I'm the least pushy, like aggressive type person. And I think if they've seen any of my trainings before, there's no hard sell. There's nothing like that. It just, I mean, I really vibe with the Hormozy thing of, make an offer so good people feel stupid saying no. Like in our sales process, there's almost no even objection handling, because I think there's just so much on the top that they really feel that. So anyway, and then we pay out a stupid amount to our affiliates. I don't think they're doing it just for the money, but it's like, I mean, basically, and I mean, our LTVs are pretty high. So like our LTVs could be like 18 grand, our LTV profit, could be less than that. It is changing and a little bit more fluid, but, I think most bookkeepers, they would pay a couple $100 for a closed, deal. For us, for our top affiliates, we'll pay 2, 3, 4 grand just for one client. And that's just on the front end. Then if they stay for a long time, there's other incentives. So I think they're, thinking we can do the job. They know us, they like us. Ideally, we want to do the bookkeeping for our affiliates and have some buy-in. But then for them, we want to make it known as clearly and quickly as possible that they're going to get free bookkeeping at a minimum, just, for doing some level of affiliates. But then what a lot of them do is they put us on their onboarding for their coaching programs or for their companies. And then all their employees or all of their coaching clients, just click a box and schedule a call with us. And again, hot leads, they have higher LTVs. So, I would say I try to pay as much as I can. And then also like I have even like we don't run ads, but the money that I would run ads with, maybe even just a few $1,000s a month, I have like a gifting budget that my EA just constantly rotates our top affiliates, and she'll send out AirPods, iPads, massages. She knows their birthdays. She'll do things like that. And
That's so
it
good,
just
dude.
makes the difference. Like they just think of me more. So I would say
Yes.
from that, we probably get a lead a day from an affiliate, and that is just an engine that runs. We don't have to do anything for it. And what's better than that? I mean, I just reread probably for the 20th time $100 million leads, but like, what is truly better than that? Your clients become your salespeople. Your affiliates are your lead getters. Like, it's an army working on your behalf for you. And of course, I can go juice it and do more marketing, but for me, it's all about fulfillment, having a world-class product, having a world-class experience that then people want to tell their friends about even more so. So, yeah, we could do a whole podcast just on that. Like, there's a bunch of little things that we do, but those are just like, some easy ones. But the podcast has been amazing just to make relationships and, have those type of like swap conversations. And we always try to lead with value, just like, send people stuff and whatever, stay top of mind with people, share their content, promote them in whatever way we can, and try to just pour back into those people. Because again, the like CPA, like the cost to acquire is still so much lower on the lead from that. And even like, what's the cost to acquire an affiliate? That's also a fascinating conversation. So, it might be a whole other thing, but anyway, yeah, it's really important for, like, I think about it all the time, as you could kind of hear.
Do you know Steve Harwood by chance with Prime Financial?
I don't think so.
He gives a really good talk. Well, you'll appreciate it. Steve Harwood with Prime Financial. He gives a really good talk. He's got a massive CPA firm, one of the biggest CPA firms in the country. And his entire model is based off of affiliates as well. And he gives an amazing talk on growing really strong affiliate traffic through gifting, which is why I figured you had brought that up, right? And his gifting strategy is like unlike anybody. Dude, so he flew us up to Park City, right, to go and see the office. And when he flew us up, he has an Airbnb that he uses just to acquire affiliates, right? He let us into the Airbnb. He gave us his Escalade. He stocked the fridge, and he was like, "Hey, what's your diet like?" It was incredible.
No
dude.
way.
It was in the house that he put us in. He had like a second like barn area, and in the barn area, it was like an indoor soccer field where you go into those inflatable balls and run into each other. He's like, I'm going to make this experience unforgettable for them, so that when they recommend a CPA firm, they have to recommend me.
What a beast. That's
It was
insane.
amazing, dude. It was so cool. So if you enjoy the affiliate and the gifting strategy, you will love Steve Harwood.
That is awesome. That's really cool to hear.
Yeah.
I'm going to check him out.
Check him out. But it's so funny that you mentioned $100 million leads and everything. I from this talk, I feel like we're living parallel lives and just haven't talked to each other before. Back in 2000, it had to have been 24. Me and Justin are sitting down. We primarily work out of 7 different forms of traffic. And we're like, dude, how do we increase our affiliate traffic? Because our affiliate traffic converts 40% to book call, not showing up call, not bullshit. Like 40% to everyone who books a call converts. And they end up being forever clients. How do we get more of this? So we went through 3 different iterations. We had a regular affiliate program, which paid a 10% commission to anyone who sent anyone over, right? That was like, okay, we're going to move to what we call the leverage lounge. Then leverage lounge, it was, you send me 5 clients and your service now becomes free for sending those 5 clients over. We didn't get any juice. Then we went from 10% to 20% commission. We didn't get any juice. So Justin, the founder of Sphere Rock, again, at the time he had to have been 26 years old, 27 years old when we had this conversation. He says, I've got an idea. He goes, I'm going to give them 85% of our revenue. I was like, 85%? What do you mean? Like, dude, we can't, we will make no money on it, right? And he says, that's the point, right? So I'm going to charge a licensing fee. This is right after we read $100 million leads. It's basically a reseller fee, right? To sell Sphere Rocket services. They can create their own VA agency without having to create any labor or do a recruitment, et cetera, right? It's a white label fee. They pay us $1,000 a month, but now we pay them 85% of the recurring revenue of anything they send our way. right? As a result,
That's insane.
the white label partner is profitable at a deal and a half, essentially, right? Profitable at a deal and a half, and it added $1.5 million to our bottom line through licensing fees, right? But last year, our white label partners sent in $4 million of top line revenue to us.
That's insane.